basically the two ideas that were floated out there, and we had discussions back and forth, went into numbers, and went into ideas, went into concepts. I think it's very difficult for Republicans to support a toll plan, given the fact that there's a no toll plan on the table. My understanding is they may redraft some numbers and get back to us with other details, but it is very difficult to find support in the House or the Senate for a toll plan. And I think that's where we are. But I think the governor is going to look at different things and perhaps get back to us next week, and we'll see where we go from there.
Are there other, I mean, if they pursue the trucks-only tolls, they're gonna have to find other revenue sources. So, did you have any discussion about what those other sources might be, and might the Republicans been able to support them?
Well, we talked about, obviously, the Senate Republican plans out there. I told them some ideas that the House Republicans have come up with, and we believe that all of those combined are the most prudent way to push forward at substantive investment in transportation. To your point of other ideas, when the trucks only plan from the House Democrats, that, as you know, it certainly does not get anywhere near enough money. And so I think that they're still working on that, but that's part of the problem, that we don't actually believe the trucks only plan works. We don't believe in the toll avenue to begin with, because we feel there's other ways to do it that are more responsible, and we put some of those on the table. But we don't believe that their trucks only plan at this point fiscally works.
Was the governor?
If I can, let me just say one. Mark, they don't have another income component. What they do is they take basically $183 million of the toll money. They have some borrowing out of the STF, and then they're using about $257 million of the rainy day fund. Now, the $257 million is what is above that 15%, between 5 and 15%. So they're using that excess money to pay down on liabilities, much like the Senate plan, to pay down on liabilities, and that's how they get there. So they don't have any additional monies that are necessary for them to reach a $19 billion plan.
Were you able to convince the governor that your plan, or make it more palatable to become to your side at all, do you think?
Well, I think we made a great pitch for it, that, look, and I think they agree with the concept because they're taking some of the concept for their plan. So I think they agree with the concept. They just want to have a truck toll. And we believe a truck toll is a non-starter, is not the right way to go, because the confidence that it is going to remain a truck toll is very low, because people don't trust government, because we make promises, the legislature's made promises and haven't kept them in the past. And whether it's this legislature or the next, it doesn't matter.
With the urgency at which you're moving here, do you see something happening before the end of the year, or is this something that'll be handled in next session?
I think that's an excellent question. The governor said, and we'll speak to him later so he can talk to you about what he thinks his time frame is for moving forward. We were very happy that we all sat in a room. We should have done this 8 months ago, 10 months ago, and had these conversations face to face. We talked about picking different parts of everybody's plan or everybody's ideas or everybody's alternatives and making a plan that actually works for everybody. But unfortunately, they seem very much myopic in their view of having tolls of some way, shape, or form. And in this particular conversation, it was still trucks.
What has the governor told you about the rainy day fund? In other words, he originally used the word risky. The 1.5 out of the 2.5 is very high. Has he told you that he would accept a lower amount, or has he told you we're not doing this no matter what?
Well, he still maintains a position that he doesn't like taking as much as the plan proposes. Their plan with the House Democrats have put out does take some money out of the rainy day fund. That money is above the 15% that would automatically come out, and they're taking it about a year early, if that kind of makes sense. So at 15%, whatever that number is, in 2021, it will be $257 million above that 50%. That's what they're taking out, paying down on unfunded liabilities, like we do in the transportation fund and the general fund, moving the fringe from the transportation fund to the general fund. So they're doing our plan as we suggest. They're just only doing it with $257 million.
And only above the 15%.
And Well, it
Or-
won't be there, but they're taking it above that 15%. And the question we asked them, if it doesn't get to that 15%, would you still take it? And it seems like they said yes, but it wasn't an ironclad yes. And then we raised some questions from there.
And we also talked about some structural changes to the way the STF functions. Because we believe, this is not just, we don't want tolls. We don't want tolls for several reasons. One, we believe there's a better way that's more fiscally responsible. We believe there's a way that will garner more trust from the citizens of the state of Connecticut, because it will not be taking more funds out of people's pockets. Because it seems that the way we operate in this legislature is that when money is needed, we go to a new revenue source. We never look within. I mean, we look back on the Fiscal Accountability Commission, who recommended going out for a consultant. They asked for $1 billion of savings. Governor Malloy put out the RFP for half a billion dollars of savings, and we put that in statute. That should have been done by now. That's a lot of money, and that's money that could have been used for this type of thing, so this conversation did not even need to be had. We spend almost $500 million in fringe, but including wages, healthcare, and pension for DOT, DMV, and some deep employees out of the Special Transportation Fund. I'm sure we all hear the same question every day. What about all this money I'm paying that's supposed to go into the Special Transportation Fund? Where did that all go? Well, when you're taking $500 million out of it to pay for those three items with those employees, every other state employee is paid from the general fund. That needs to structurally change, or this conversation is going to continue going on. If tolls are somehow passed today, that is why tolls will continue increasing. That is why the amount paid in tolls will increase. Because the structure of this state and the structure of the Special Transportation Fund, as we've talked about year after year, is faulty. That needs to be fixed no matter how difficult it is.
How
And
much
that was the
common,
premise for why we pay down the unfunded liabilities, to move the fringe out of the STF.
How
We
much-
move about half the fringe on the Senate plan.
how much
Republican plan.
common ground was there? I mean, frankly, you were in there for quite a while, longer than many other meetings. And was the reason because there was common ground that we're not hearing so far in what you're saying, or why were you in there so long?
Well, there was a lot of questions about the plan that we had. For instance, if it's a truck plan, what are we tolling in terms of trucks? Are you tolling, Ford 150s? Are you tolling vans? They were suggesting we're tolling large trucks, heavy trucks, and medium trucks. Well, that's not defined in the statute, so what does that mean? Is it per axle? Is it weight? What's the highest? What's the lowest? And they answered all those questions, but that's all the questions we were trying to figure out what the impact was and how they got to their number of 183 million. And some of the plan from what we heard yesterday changed from this morning, which I get why, you always are refining your plan. So there's some things that changed, which also changed their numbers.
Did this
But I think
begin?
there is a lot of common ground to your original question. I think there is. I think that there was conversation about rainy day fund and different ranges of using it. I think there's conversations about finding savings. I think there's conversations about a lot of these things we talked about, doing them in a way that maybe we can agree with. The problem is, they are still stopped in their thought process on tolls. And we do not feel that that's anything we can ever support.
Did the governor begin the meeting by making clear that the framework to go forward for his administration was truck tolls and a discussion?
Well, I asked in the beginning, and it was brought up several times throughout the conversation, is your thought process about funding transportation going to always include tolls? Whether it's car tolls, truck tolls, no matter how many gantries there are, will it include tolls in some way, shape, or form? And they said yes. That is their part of their thought process, and we expressed our caucus's opinions on that. And as you know, that's not something that our caucuses have an appetite for, that we don't support. But so we continue to talk about the plans, our alternatives in the House Republicans, the Senate Republican plan, and other ideas that the rest of them had. And I think the shame of it is, I think we can agree to a lot of things as long as tolls are not the basis for the transportation funding.
Or any other net new revenue?
Right.
Okay.
Some of us are facing a very tight deadline. I wonder if we could move on to the governor.
Well, wait a minute, I'd like to,
So get
out the hook.
I'd like
Go ahead,
to
Paul.
ask
Yep.
if the House Republicans are going to be putting out a plan, because we were told that you were, and some of your comments, perhaps today I'm hearing them, sounds like you might not, that you presented them in this format, so I'm just
Well,
wondering.
I gave the governor some of our alternatives we've talked about. You know, as you saw, the Senate Republicans, you know, put out their plan, and the House Democrats just said they wanted toll trucks, and we have solutions and alternatives that we feel people should be looking at, so those are our alternatives to transportation. We'll be putting them out in a press release sometime soon.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks for understanding.
Thanks for the hook, Mark.
Thank you.